Hello everybody, I'm Ard, and welcome to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. Today, after a long stint of plowing through to the end game of this mod pack, we're going to go a little bit off script. And that's because I need a break. So we're going to do something that I realized we have been putting off for a while because I just haven't wanted to do it. And if we go into the quest book, you can see what that is. And that's this bright red circle with the gate for Psi, which we have not even opened yet because it's not really all that integrated into this pack. And it's as simple as making the cat assembler to start with, which is really simple materials wise. Now, there's a reason why we're going to do this though, and that's because we can't complete this pack without actually delving into Psi, even if it isn't really integrated. Because down here in the bragging rights section, there's the creative CAD assembly for it, which requires Ivory Psimetal as well as Ebony Psimetal to make these guns. So we need to do at least the basics of Psi to get started on this. And as I said, the very first step is the CAD assembler. So let's go make the CAD assembler and get this underway. Alright, and having easily done that, we can now go into the gates and claim this single loot chest. Ice cream. But now, what it doesn't tell you is how to do any of this, and the documentation for Psi is slave to a key, in this case C by default. If you go into the options and just type Psi, you can find the keybind if you need to change it or you need to rebind it. If you played Psi before, this interface will look differently. It will tell you if you want to load it or not because you've previously done this. This is because I previously played Enigmatica. We're just going to scrap this and start over. And this tells you what you need to do, and that basically there's no explanation for how to make any of the items in this. You need to use it through JEI. But what it does tell you to do is how to start. And to do this, we need to make some Psi dust, which means we need to take the CAD assembler and an iron CAD assembly and make the very first personal casting assistance device. And the iron CAD assembly is really simple. It's just iron. We could have done this forever ago. From there, you put this in the CAD assembler and take out the casting assistance device. And then you just chuck out some redstone and right click it, and it turns it into Psi dust, and now we've leveled up. Now we bring this up and it shows you the tutorials that we do and shows you what you're going to learn. In this case, we're going to learn the trick debug and selector caster. And I suppose at this point, I didn't actually explain what Psi is. It's actually a programming mod not too unlike Open Computers in its way that lets you do some really complex things based off of creating patterns and process flows inside the spell programmer. You basically fire magic bullets to do stuff. It's honestly more work than I like putting into Minecraft, but it does some really interesting things. But we're going to do pretty much the bare minimum to get to the pack, which requires unlocking these various steps till we get to the one we need. So having clicked the green checkbox, it now shows us the tutorials for what we need to do, and it tells you what we need to do here. And we need to make a spell programmer first. And the spell programmer is just as ridiculously easy as the other one. And we can put it down right there. And it also wants us to make a better caster than we currently have, which case we're pretty much limited to the gold one right now because the other ones require the various types of Psimetal. It also wants us to add a core of some sort, a socket, and a battery. We can also add colorizers to make it different colors. These are also pretty simple to make, but just like the other ones, require increasingly more Psi materials than we currently have. Once we have all the materials, we go back into the CAD assembler and put them all in, and you can see how it affects these various stats here. And now we have a slightly better one. The last thing we need to make are spell bullets to store our spells in. There's the basic one as well as a whole bunch of different variants that do different things. But we're just going to make the basic one for now. Okay, going into the spell programmer, and this is just following the instructions of the tutorial. If you actually read it, it'll tell you what you need to do here. You have this grid where you can load in a spell. Just click on any spot to select it, and then right click it and you can see the actions available to you. In this case, right now we just have selector caster and trick debug. I'm not going to go through all of these tutorials because I just need to progress to get to what we need, but just to show you how this works. In this case, it wants you to set up selector caster as the target, and then trick debug as the command we're going to run because this is all we have available at this tutorial level. So you just click that, and then right next to it, you put trick debug. Now, once you have this, we need to set a target, and we want it to we want the selector caster to be linked like this. And now it says compilation successful. Now that we've done that, take a spell bullet, put it on your bar, and right click the spell programmer with it, and it loads it in. Go back to the CAD assembler, put your casting assistant in, and put your debug program into it right here. to load it up. Once we've done that, we can then fire to debug, and you see that in the chat box it shows debug information about me, and we've leveled up. If we hold C down, you can see that we can now select the spell with the gun we want, but onward and upward. Alright, to give you a basic idea of some of the things you can do with this, however, and this is very early in the tutorial still, you can create basic teleport spells, and unfortunately I'm limited to what the CAD assembly I'm using can currently do, which is not very far, but here's an example. Right click, I didn't actually walk, I teleported 3 spaces in the direction I was facing. Real interesting looking. But as they get more powerful, you can do further and further things, but this is still very, very early in the tutorials. And just as an example, here's what the spell I created actually looks like. It's got, selection caster, and then it's adding the motion to the caster using the direction the caster is looking, which is then linked to the caster so that it knows who's supposed to be looking at it, as well as the speed of 3. But it gets a lot more complicated than this. If teleportation's not your thing, how about exploding things from a distance? Literally just nuking anything within sight. That a little bit more exciting? I thought so. Okay, so after about an hour of plowing through tutorials and getting through a bunch of this stuff and learning how this works in general, we are finally up to level 10, the Psimetal infusion. So note, this is mostly just about targeting and how to do various manipulations so far, which gets fairly complex. However, Psimetal infusion is easy. It's just a single trick by itself, and it works almost exactly like the redstone to Psimetal does, except it's gold. And there we go, now we have a bunch of Psimetal. Now the problem is I need to continue up through here, up to level 15 to get Psimetal infusion, which means finishing out some more of these. So I guess give me a little bit, but now I can upgrade my casting device at least, and maybe a few other things. Okay, after muddling through a bunch of other tutorials again, and frankly not learning nearly as much as I would have liked, I finally have gotten to the step that we were waiting for, the Greater Infusion step, which both unlocks Greater Infusion and Ebony and Ivory. But to use these, we need to make a trip, because the Ebony and Ivory ones require being in the end to do. So here we are standing on top of my solar panels, because why not? And this lets you convert diamonds into Psigems, coal into Ebony substance, and nether quartz into Ivory substance. Make sure we select the right one. And there we go. Ebony, Ivory, and Psigems. And these, combined with Psimetal ingots, are used to make the correct ingots. So now we've honestly progressed far enough into this that we can actually call it quits on this and never look at Psi again, because this is actually honestly a lot of work. It's a really neat mod. It's just not what I prefer from Minecraft personally. A lot of people do, that's fine. But for me, it's more work than I want to go through. But we can now actually finish the bragging rights section when we get to it pretty easily. If I do find some other uses for this later, we might go back to it, but we'll worry about that when we get there. Anyhow, if you found this episode interesting or entertaining, please leave a like or consider subscribing if you're new. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.